Hello everyone, this is Smriti Mishra from BrandWagon Online, and today I have with me Naveen Murali, who is the Vice President and Head of Marketing at Pepperfry. So Naveen, let's get straight into the set of questions. So first of all, being in the online space, you've predominantly been in the online space even before the pandemic. So what is the kind of impact that you've seen in your business, especially in the last 2 years when most of the people were forced to move online?
So I put it like this. First of all, we count ourselves to be an omni-channel business today. So we have a substantial large presence online as well as offline. So that's the first part I want to talk about. But going back to your question, which is about the impact over the last couple of years, the way the world has shifted and how has business been. So I'll just cover it over parts. So the first thing it's been is that, of course, because we were not in the first few months as everyone went through the pandemic, I think there are more important priorities in life, and furniture not also being in the essential category of business. Okay, so we operated differently, right? But otherwise, if you look at the trends of what has happened, if I just look at consumer trends, we saw a lot of people migrating from their big cities back to their hometowns, which is what has happened across. I think a lot of folks went back. And secondly, the parallelly offices were working as work from home. And hence, two things happened. I think wherever people had shifted back to, suddenly, even if they were at their same locations or gone back home, there was a need for furniture that helps or assists work from home. So we saw a trend of, in general, that category picking up really well. So people wanted to order chairs, work tables, etc., which generally picked up as one trend. What's also happened as we now, it's been a long time, right? It's been about 2.5 years, if you put it like that. So since over the last 2 years, I think now the trend is also, I think offices are opening up and hence folks are coming back. I think across you hear about folks opening offices up, etc. So two things happened in this period. So one is in the transition period. One is as people spend more time at home, you just noticed more about the kind of furniture, home decor, etc. that you have. And people invested more there. So earlier you wanted a great looking sofa. Now you wanted a sofa which was not just great looking, but great to sit on, right? So people just invested more in homes over the last 2 years when they were just caught inside homes. Today, what's happening is as folks are coming back to their origin cities, let me call it, or where they were working back from their homes. Now, suddenly people want the kind of furniture and settings they had at their home. So you might be, let's say in Bombay in a 600 square feet home, but you were staying in a 2000 square feet when you went back. And suddenly now you feel, why not bring those comforts here? So while you were compromising on your home before, that's something we see people are investing continuously on.
Right. In terms of, this was from the consumer's perspective. In terms of the business, I wanted to understand what is the kind of growth in terms of revenue did you witness and how have you closed FY 2022, which just ended?
Yeah, so I think not getting too much into the commercials because I think some of these have already been announced and published, right? So I can go back to what is last announced numbers in this, which is where we had announced FY21, right? But broadly to give you a construct of the business, which has been, I think over the last year, overall trends have been very interesting. But I think the trend has been very exciting. The last Diwali, for example, etc., has been great trends in business. Things have been picking up well. I'll stay away from FY22 commercials right now, because that's yet to be announced for us.
Right. And when we talk about traction in terms of consumers coming in, so currently, which cities do you see that are where is most of the consumers coming off as of now?
Yeah, so let me put it like this. I think overall markets are different, right? When you look at furniture and home decor, I'll put it like this. You had online e-commerce, which is one trend which needs to pick up in general. So with over the last few years, with multiple brands launching internet at a price which is extremely affordable, online e-commerce penetration has drastically moved across from just the tier 1 to tier 2 and tier 3, right? Which means our trends of businesses have also followed the same, right? The one major difference between general online and let's say furniture online would be it's a slightly high value non-standardized category. And hence a lot of the work that we have done over the last 10 years have also been to tell people that when you're buying something like this of high value online, what are the apprehensions you should not and how to get here, right? So the trends are very similar. I think there's a large part of business coming also from, let's say, tier ones per se, metros and tier ones put together, which as it would be for any other businesses. And similarly, we have businesses going to tier twos, etc., and beyond. And a lot of our activities are also towards getting more of those folks online. Right. The good thing is that our strategy today is not just online because we have an omni-channel presence. So a lot of the studios that we are opening, which is where you can actually have a physical presence, we are also reaching out to a tier two and a tier three through this. So our strategy of openings are also through. So not just the online approach, but the online plus offline is a mix of reaching out to all these towns.
Right. I was in fact coming to the studios bit. So currently, how many studios has Pepperfry opened so far? And what is the contribution of studios in your overall business?
So I'll take this in two parts, right? I'll tell you about how is studio and what's our journey and the plan with respect to studios, and then we can get to where are the numbers and how are we moved, etc.
Yeah.
Right? So we exited FY20, right? So when we had the last numbers, I think we had about 73 studios as we entered the last year, right? And what the last published information I can talk about is that we had crossed 100 plus when our last published information was out, and we were looking to get to 150 by March. That's what we were planning to get to, right? You would have to wait to where we actually got to. But what we want to say is that largely the studios has been a great place for us to drive consumers who are otherwise wary of getting online, number one, right? We have about 140 plus studios. That's what is being discussed, right? So what I was getting to is studios has been a great source of acquisition of new consumers for us in beyond the online scape is one. Secondly, we've also seen that people coming to studios in general, we get up, let's say, products of higher order value. So we are able to drive business of more premiumness through the studios. We are also able to get more catchment area through the studios. So that's generally been the direction for us.
So Naveen, my next question to you would be, which you'd also mentioned earlier, that people move to furniture because they started working from home, and as a category, those chairs and tables as a category grew. So somehow now when people are moving back to offices and home, I mean the meaning of home had definitely evolved over the past 2 years. So do you see somehow that this is going to impact your businesses anyway? Do you see new categories coming up and the and the trends that had come up recently going away?
Yes, I agree with you, right? Like our business has different waves at different times. The entire work from home was a big wave in the beginning, like when the businesses picked up and people were working from home. That was a great wave on which we actually got businesses. The categories that people use keep changing, as I talked about earlier, right? When people are coming back to their homes, now they want sofas which are not just great looking, but are great to sit on, right? So
Yeah.
just in general, the investment of homes or consumers in homes seems to have gone up. And that's where I think continuously there is more furniture coming in. And also the need to be trendy, or if you just look at the percentage of homes that are new, both of these just drive overall businesses up. So the merchandise keeps varying, right? I agree with that. So we have different categories which pick up and go up. So like we said, the businesses prior to the pandemic was not necessarily from work from home. That was a smaller category then. It picked up and in fact has faded down, and we have other large categories picking up. So it's just a continuous cycle that's keeping evolving.
Right. So now coming to the marketing bit, I wanted to understand what is the kind of strategies in terms of marketing that are being put in place for Pepperfry particularly, both from a digital as well as traditional perspective.
Got it. So I'll address this in two parts because you also talked about the channel later and what is the marketing objective as a second part, right?
Yeah.
I think fundamentally when we started off the business, we initially always talked about what's the experience that we can provide to the consumers when you come to Pepperfry. That was the entire first few years of how Pepperfry was operating. Largely from there, we moved towards providing value because when consumers thought about online in general, one of the reasons people adopted online commerce in general was also value. So a lot of our communication of the past, after the first few years, couple of years, was on delivering value. Over the last few years, we have taken two routes which we always communicate across. One is about how to provide great aspiration for homes and how does Pepperfry fit into that. That's been a journey that we have been trying to come into because we feel that consumers, like I was talking about earlier, right? People today spend a lot more time at home and hence they want to really have a home that talks about themselves or talks for themselves, like both of these, right? So that's something we've been investing. And the second thing we also talk consciously to the market is about the barriers or triggers that generally people have with respect to this purchase. So, for example, there are folks who wonder if I buy from online, I do not know what I get is what I see on the app. Right? That's a big worry generally when you spend so much of, let's say you have to spend 25,000, 30,000 to buy a product. And I do not know, I've not seen it before. In this category, that's a worry. So for a long time, we also talked about what you see is what you get. So that's one communication that we talked about. We also try to trigger what are the other channels, right? Because what are the other channels from where they purchase? As against that, what is the advantage you get here? So you would see a lot of our ads which talked about in the past as against buying from a carpenter. If you had bought from Pepperfry, what would have been the advantages? So we try to address a lot of triggers and barriers in general, and also to drive aspiration, which comes through having great products, a great range, etc. So that's largely what we talk about. Now, the second part which you talked about channels, I think the mix of channels has been changing over time because we prior to the pandemic had a solid mix across medium, but over the last 2 years, as the channel evolved for everyone, people were not on the roads, etc. So you would have seen us investing less on, let's say, outdoor when we knew people were not going out. We invested a lot more money on, let's say, digital, which was a larger prime medium to drive a lot of our traffic in, let's say, 2020 and let's say also major part of 21, right? Because we believe we invest a lot more money towards the middle and bottom of the funnel where we get people through that route. Now, when we did our last campaign, which was in January, when we had our entire anniversary, 10th anniversary campaign, where we want to actually tell folks it's been a long time that you've been with us and look at how you have changed us and we have changed you. So in the anniversary campaign, we actually took a mix of all the mediums. So it was a 360-degree approach where we went to actually TV, we were on outdoor, we were on digital. So the way we see ahead is now we want to be where the consumer is. If they are now back on the road, we believe outdoor is something which will be of relevance. TV is something that's being consumed again because we have fresh content coming in. So we want to be relevant and reach out to the consumers wherever they are. The medium is also a choice of where we want to reach out to whom. So I think now in our overall approach, we, like I talked about, you asked about it earlier, I think there's this movement from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3, right? So in our approach to now get to a larger catchment area, some mass media plays a great role in reaching out to those folks. Whereas a lot of targeted approach through digital or let's say localized approach through outdoor, etc., gets us to focus towns within these. So let's say I want to get to metros and tier 1s, these let me do that.
Right. Now, coming specifically to FY23, when people have started moving out, and you in a way increased the marketing spends for FY23 compared to the last year. And again, how will the flow happen? How will the flow of spends happen? Will it be spent equally across traditional, digital, or will digital garner a larger share?
Coming back to how do you address the medium, I think we have different campaigns planned for the year for different purposes. Okay. And we will be tackling each of them separately. And going back to what we just discussed before, right? There are objectives where I would want to reach out to wider base, like reach out to folks across tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, etc., where we'll be using mass media at a larger spend, right? And there are campaigns where we want to strengthen our hold over where we do really well, right? Or if you want to do campaigns, let's say focusing on metros and tier 1, we would also take the localized approach where some of the other mediums work exceptionally well, like digital or an outdoor. Right. So we would be employing a mix of both because our strategy for this year is going to do both, which is strengthening our hold over where we are really good at, but reaching out to onboard more people from all other towns as well. So it's a campaign specific strategy. We'll be employing both. Last 2 years, we had been spending almost a large part of our money on digital. What we're doing now is the reverse. So we are actually now opening up and accessing all the other mediums because in a year like 2020, we spent a lot more of the advertisement reaching out to folks in the middle of the funnel or the bottom of the funnel, or otherwise also through reach top of the funnel through digital as a route because people are not on the road. A lot of TV production was not happening, right? In that case, that's what we did. Right now, it's a reverse. We are actually going back to opening up things. So we think it'll be a healthy mix between digital and mainline.
Sure, understood. Naveen, my last question to you would be, what are the plans for Pepperfry going forward? You're investing a lot into offline stores. So do you expect the demand going forward to be driven by tier 2, tier 3 cities? What is the kind of expectations from those markets? And what are the plans for Pepperfry as a brand?
Okay, so two things. I think the journey for Pepperfry is, as you rightly said, we want to reach out to beyond the larger catchment areas of tier 1 and metros. So a lot of our action over both omni-channel, which is for studios, as well as our communication has been to reach out to all of these additional areas. So we've been opening, when we talked about the 140 plus studios, which Nisha has talked about, a lot of these studios have come up in specifically these localities. So we have strengthened our hold in tier 1 and metros. You will see a lot of studios have opened up in those folds, but we've reached out to places like Kollam. We have reached out to places across like Guwahati, right? We have reached out to places like these where earlier we were not present. So one thing we've done is reached out to places beyond the metros and tier 1 through our offline network. Our last communication that we did in January, we were present on media across Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, right? So we have reached out now to markets beyond, like we were talking about earlier. We've reached out to markets beyond the metros and tier 1 in our approach, which will continue to be our strategy over the course. So we want to add more people to the fold. As they come in, we want to give them a great reason to buy, which is why we have products which are very fantabulously looking. So great designs is something that we really talk about. The other thing is, as against going to anyone else, you come to us and you get a great variety, right? Because that's one big difference when you come to our studio is that is the sale, while you see a set of products which are in the studio, the larger part of the sale also happens because of the large listing on the website. So majority of our products actually get sold through that route. So a great variety followed by a great trendy design is that what we talk about. So this communication going out to a wider base is what we'll be doing.
Right. And what is the expectations in terms of tier 2 and tier 3 markets in terms of your overall business?
So I think the fold has been increasing even in the last year because two things that happened. One is folks, like I talked about, this trend of people going back from a person staying in Bangalore had now gone back because of the lockdown to, let's say, Cochin, right? And that person was now ordering in Cochin or a Kollam. So we had already started getting business tracked to these locations now, right? The way we have also opened up studios in these towns, we expect a large part of our growth to be also driven from these expansions outside. Because in general, now people have actually tasted what great products can get delivered. So that we expect a large part of our business to also get driven through these parts.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Naveen, thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.